Essentials of the Linux command line. Today we will cover the following commands and information. The pwd command, which stands for print working directory, tells you where you are in the hierarchical directory tree of Linux. The first directory in the Linux file system is named the root directory, and it's denoted with just a simple slash. Inside the root directory are other files and folders that branch downward, kind of like a tree. The location of these files and directories are referred to as paths. If you want to navigate this file system, it's good to know where you're currently located on the tree, and the pwd command will do just that for you. Below is an example of a common directory tree and how it's structured. So for instance, we look up here, we have this slash, which is denoted right here. That's our root directory. And then inside our root directory, we have 4 folders. A folder called bin, a folder called etc, a folder called home, and a folder called var. These are also referred to as directories. You can tell that inside each of these folders, there are files and folders also inside of them. Here is an example of using the pwd command in your terminal window. Type pwd, and then out will come the current working directory that you're in. Directory shortcuts are important to touch on because they help, people who use Linux. We don't like to type a lot, and so having shortcuts means that we can actually do what we need to do in a lot quicker fashion. The first example, dot, represents your current working directory, and dot represents the parent directory. This is the directory above your current working directory on the file tree. The tilde here represents the home directory for each user, and this is usually listed as /home/ your username, and in this example the user's name is Samuel. Dash represents the previous directory you were in before the most recent CD. So if we go back to our slide before, you can see that with this little indicator I have on my terminal, we can see that we're in tilde as our current working directory, but when we do pwd, it gives us the absolute file path. And the reason that is because tilde and /home/ my username are synonymous. And let's look at some examples here. So our first example, we're in tilde, and we call cd dot right there. And you can see that in the next command, we're still in the working directory of tilde. We'll do cd dot dot, which will go up to the parent directory, and the directory above our name is /home. So you can see right here at the next command, we are in the working directory /home. We'll do cd tilde, which will send us back to our home directory, and you can see in the next command line, we have our working directory set back to tilde. We'll do cd dash right here, and that will call the previous CD and the previous CD directory that we CD'd to, was /home, and then in our next line, we are in the directory /home. Okay, the next command we'll look at is ls, which will list contents inside of a directory. The ls command by itself will list directories and files currently housed inside your working directory, just by itself, straight up ls. But you can also specify a path that you want to see the contents of, even if it's not your working directory. So in this case, no matter where I am in the directory tree, if I type ls/home/ Samuel, it will show me the contents inside the home folder for the user Samuel. It's important to remember that not all files or directories will be visible. Some file names that start with a dot are hidden when we do the just ls by itself. This is where special flags for the ls command can come in handy, and we'll look at a couple of those. But before we do so, let's look at some examples. I'm in my home directory at tilde. I'll say ls. Let's see what's inside. We can see we have some folders: desktop, documents, downloads, music, public, pictures, videos, and templates. We also have two files, one named file 1 and one named file 2. If I want to see what's inside of a folder that I'm not currently in, I can type ls, and in this case I want to see what's in /home. And because I'm the only user on this computer, it only has my folder there. But if there were other users on this computer, you'd see other information as well. So even though I wasn't in the /home folder, I could still see what's inside of it. So as we talked about, we'll look at some flags. Flags are just special operators that we append to the end of commands in Linux to get a specified output. So adding the -a flag, which stands for all, to the end of the ls command will show files that start with dot. So now if we call ls-a, we can see there's some configuration files. You might not have all these configuration files depending on what you're doing, but these are just my configuration files, and they have a dot in front of them. And previously, when we did ls without -a, we weren't able to see those. So that's what -a will do. Adding the -l flag, which stands for long format, to the end of the ls command will show information such as size, date, owner, and permissions associated with each file or folder. So we can see here, we'll call ls-l, and we can see the permissions associated with, right here, the desktop folder. We can see the owner of the folder. We can see when it was created. And adding the -t flag to the end of the ls command will show content sorted by time modified. So newest are listed first when we do ls-t. I also want to mention that flags are also referred to as options or arguments synonymously. Flags add more functionality to the command. Flags can also be combined. So applying what we know about flags and combining them, we can see that I called ls-la here. And so this shows the long format of the files and folders, and it also includes our dot files in our output. Over here, I called ls-lt. That stands for long format and time sorted, and we can see that here as well. Okay, the cd command, which stands for change directory. Before changing your working directory, it's important that we kind of differentiate absolute and relative paths in relationship to the file system tree. Absolute paths, when written, start at the root directory and move downward. Relative paths are paths branching downward from your current working directory. When using the cd command, you can change your working directory by either an absolute or relative path name. So for example, you could change your working directory to the documents folder using this absolute path. And now that we're in the documents folder for Samuel, we could use the relative path name called school. Next, the mkdir command to create a directory. In order to create new directories in addition to already existing directories, you must use the mkdir command. In this first example, right here, we're just saying mkdir. We're typing in an absolute path name starting at the root directory and branching downward. But also, depending on where we were in our working directory, we could just create a new folder called Mkdir, in this example, inside of our working directory, just like this. The first example creates a new directory called Mkdir in the path /path/2. And then in that second example, like I said, a new directory called Mkdir is created in the current working directory. You can even make multiple directories in one command. So let's look at an example here. We start off, we're in tilde, which is my home directory. We'll say mkdir. We're putting in an absolute path name, starting at the root directory /home/cc Rollins, my username, /documents/Mkdir. Our new directory's name is Mkdir. We're still in tilde. We'll call ls, and we'll put in an absolute path name, just so we can show that we can, /home/cc Rollin/documents. And you can see here, right here, we have a new directory named Mkdir. Okay, now we're still in tilde. I'll say mkdir Mkdir. You see here I have a relative path name, no directory shortcuts, and I'm not using the absolute path name starting at the root directory. So I'm creating a new directory inside tilde. I'll say ls, and inside I can see I have a new directory called Mkdir. Still in tilde, I'll say mkdir Mkdir1, Mkdir2. I'll say ls since we're in the tilde folder. This is our current working directory, and what do you know? We have a directory named Mkdir1 and a directory named Mkdir2. You can use the -p flag, which stands for parent, to create nested directories, which are directories inside of each other with one command. So the -p option assumes that the directories you're creating don't exist. So if I wanted to create a directory named path, and inside path was a new folder called 2, and inside of that folder was a new directory named dir, I could do that by saying mkdir -p path2dir. So I'm in tilde, I'll say mkdir -p path2dir, and because I am not actually specifying an absolute path name here, because I don't start at root, I don't have a I'm still in tilde. I'll cd into that directory, and you can see that now we have a directory named path, which inside that has a directory named 2, and inside that there's a directory named dir, and that's all in my home directory. This is the cp command for copy files, and let's think of the cp command as an effective copy and paste that you might be accustomed to like in other operating systems. And when we use the cp command to copy files, a source path and a destination path are required. A source path is the path that contains the file you want to copy, and the destination path is the path that the copied file will be stored in once the command is complete. The source and destination paths can be the same as long as you give a unique name to the file being copied inside the current directory. You can also copy one or multiple files to a destination path. The -r flag can be used to copy an entire directory or folder. The -r stands for recursively copying the directory and all the files inside of it. It's important to note that if you copy a file to a destination path that has the same file name, the file in the destination path will be automatically overwritten with the new file being copied. Make sure that when you copy files, if you want to avoid overwrites, make sure that your file has a unique name. If you want to avoid this, you can use the -i flag, and it will prompt you via the command line to confirm the operation before permanently overwriting a file. So let's look at some examples here. I'm in tilde. I'm going to say cp, and here I'm using a relative path name because I'm using a directory shortcut. I'm at tilde/picture1.png, and I'm copying that to my pictures folder, which is located in tilde/pictures. I'm still in my tilde directory as my current working directory, so I have to specify an actual path name after ls if I want to see what's inside pictures. So I'll say ls tilde/pictures, and there it is, picture1.png was copied. Let's look at another example. In this case, we'll say we're in tilde again. We'll say cp tilde/picture1 and tilde/picture2.png. So what that does is it copies picture1 and picture2 to our current working directory of tilde. We'll say ls, and then we can see picture1 and picture2.png. Finally, our last example, copying two files, picture1 and picture2, to the pictures folder in our home directory. We'll look inside there, and there we go. Picture1 and picture2 are inside the pictures folder. All right, looking at the -r flag with cp. This is for folders. We can say cp-r. We're copying the My Pictures folder that's in our home directory to be inside the pictures directory in our home directory. Since we're still at tilde, if we want to see what's inside pictures, we have to do ls tilde/pictures. and we can see we have picture 1 and picture 2, but we also have a new folder inside there called My Space Pictures. We can, once again, see what's in My Pictures with the ls command, specifying a path name because we're not in that directory itself, and we can see that it has contents as well. Okay, the mv command to move and rename files / directories. To rename a file, you can use the mv command followed by the old file name and the new file name. The mv command, it has 2 functions. So in this case, we're renaming. So renaming this file 1, and this case, I specified an absolute path name just for an example to show that both work. /home/Samuel, which is our home directory, /documents, and then the new file name, file 2. So we just renamed file 1 to file 2 and kept it in the same directory. And here we go. This is where we actually get into moving files. If we have a file named file 2 in our current working directory, we can move it to the path, and it's to our home directory inside of our documents folder. So let's look at some just applications. So we're in tilde, our home directory. We'll do ls. We see we have a file named old file name. We'll use the mv command, and in this case we're renaming. So we'll say mv old file name, new file name. And because we're editing files in our current working directory, we don't have to specify long, path names. We can just use these relative names. We're still in tilde. We'll do ls, and we can see that that has been renamed to new file name. Another example, we're in tilde again. We'll say ls. There's that file named new file name. I'm going to move it. And so in this case, we'll say mv. I'm moving my new file name to /documents, which is my home directory, or /desktop, excuse me, not documents, desktop. And because I'm not in the desktop folder, I have to specify a path name after ls. So I'll say ls /desktop, and we can see that in our desktop folder of our home directory, that new file name has been moved. More than one file can actually be moved at once. So you can move file 1 and file 2 to some directory path. You can also use mv to rename directories as well. And remember that if you move a file directory, this operation by default will overwrite anything with the same directory or file naming. Keep in mind that you can use the -I flag to confirm your intended actions before the command is actually executed. Let's look at that. I'm in tilde. I'm going to type ls. I have 2 files that we're looking at, file 1 and file 2, that are of interest. I'm going to move file 1 and file 2 to my desktop folder. And because I'm not in the desktop folder, I have to specify that path after ls. So I'll say ls /desktop. And you can see I have a file named file 1 and a file named file 2 on my desktop. Okay, down here, I'm in tilde. I'll type ls. I have a directory named older, and I'm going to rename that directory. So I'll say mv older, and I want to give that the new name newdir. I'll type ls, and then there we go. It got renamed to newdir. Let's now look at the rm command to remove files or directories. Some operating systems have a trash can or recycle bin equivalent that holds on to deleted files before they're actually permanently destroyed. And the Linux command rm will remove files and directories, but once it's executed, there's no way to retrieve the files or retrieve what you might have accidentally destroyed, like in other operating systems. And because of this, always be super careful and review what you've typed in your terminal before executing. And just like with other important commands, we can use that -I flag if we want an interactive prompt to confirm our intentions. Fortunately, some files and directories are write protected, and this is a safety measure that will prompt you for confirmation before deletion, even without the -I flag. And even with write protection, you can only remove files or directories that you have been given explicit permission to do so with. And if you want to ignore messages about write protection use, you can use the -F to force deletion. Let's look at some examples. We start off, I'm in my home directory, tilde, say ls. I have 3 files, file 1, file 2, and file 3. I'm just going to do a straight rm, I'll type ls, and as you can see, all I have left is file 2 and file 3. File 1 was removed. I have put write protection on file 2, so I'm going to use the -f flag to force the removal of file 2. So I'll do rm-f file 2, and then file 3. File 3 has some important information in it, or is important to me, so I'm going to use the -i flag for an interactive prompt, and it will say, hey, are you sure you want to remove this file named file 3? I'll put a Y there for yes. It says, okay, yes, you want to do this, and I will check, see what is inside my home directory now, ls, and I can see that file 2 is gone, and so is file 3. It is no longer in my home directory. To remove directories with rm, you must use the -r flag to delete the files inside a directory and then the directory itself. So just like the directory tree, you have to with Linux, you have to delete the stuff inside the folder and then delete the folder itself. And so the -r flag will do all that. So I'll type ls just to see what's inside my home directory, and I have a directory just named directory right here. I'll say rm-r directory. I can say ls, and then I no longer see that directory that is named directory. And if you didn't use the -r flag, you'd get some nasty messages, and your intentions to remove that directory would not succeed. The cat command. This will display the contents of a file. It simply prints out to the console the text or contents inside a file, and cat is actually short for concatenate, which means to combine. So in this example, I'll just say cat textfile.txt. Cat not only displays file contents, but it can combine multiple files to show you the output. So you can say, I want to combine my calendar and my birthdays to look at them together. So let's look at an example. I'll type ls. I have a file name called basic text file and another file named another text file. Very creative names. So I'll say cat basic text file.txt, and it'll read out to me what I have inside that file. You found me. This is the inner contents of basic text file.txt. I could also see what's inside the other text file with this command at the top. I'll say, hi there. It's just another text file to look at with the cat command. And then finally, I can actually combine those two, and you could see it'll list the contents of the first coupled with the contents of the second. Cat is usually used to view small files with small content, and it's not so great for viewing larger files. So that's what we'll cover in the next slide with the less command. And even though it seems counterintuitive, the less command, it actually helps you examine the contents of larger files. So remember, less is more. That's what I used to remember these sort of things. So you can type the file path after less, just like with cat. So here it is, less, and then a file named textfile.txt. So let's look at an example here. I'll type ls. I have a text file named pi.txt, and so I'll say less pi.txt, and it will have a bunch of numbers associated with pi. Maneuvering in a file using less is different, so you can move up and down the page using the page up and page down keys on your keyboard, but you could also use the up and down arrow keys if you choose. You can use the lowercase g, type lowercase g to go to the beginning of the file contents, or you could use capital G to go to the end of the file contents. You could type the letter H if you need additional help using less, and always remember that to get out of the viewing window, you have to type Q to exit. We'll also look at a basic command line text editor. Less and cat, you can just view text, but with nano, you can actually edit files. So to create a blank new file to start editing, you can simply type nano. From here, you can start typing the contents you desire to put in your new file. Since this option does not specify the file name from the start, you need to type Control-O. And at the bottom of your screen, you'll be prompted to give a name for the file. You'll give a name, you'll press enter, and then you can press Control X to return to the command line. So let me just show you what that would look like, okay? So I'll type nano. I'm in my nano text editor. I'm going to type hello world, it is me. Now, I need to give this file that I'm writing a name to be saved. So I can hit Control and O, and down here it'll say file name to write. I'm going to give it the name hello world.txt for a text file. I'll hit my enter key. It'll say wrote one line. And then to exit, all I have to do is do Control X. I can type ls to see if my file is there. And what do you know? Hello world.txt is there. To edit an existing file or a new file with a defined file name from the start, you can type nano file path. And like before, you can start typing the contents you desire to put in the new file. And then when you're ready to save, Control O, and make sure the file name is correct, hit enter, and then Control X to return to the command line. So I'll show that as well. We can say nano py.txt. This time I'm specifying the file name after nano. I'll hit enter. I can use the arrow keys to maneuver as well throughout the text file. I'm just using my up, down, left, right arrow keys. And I'm going to hit enter. I'm just going to add something to the end here. I'll say this is a lot of numbers. Okay. Once I'm satisfied with what I want to write, once again I'll hit Control O. It'll prompt me to make sure that the file name I want to write to is correct. And yes, I want to write to py.txt. I'll hit enter. And then I'll do Control X to leave. And then if I wanted to see if what I wrote was saved or not, I could do less py.txt. And there you go. At the end, my string that I wrote in nano was written to the file. Now let's look at the man, help, and the -- help options. These are all used for getting help. So like the manual in your car, the commands mentioned in this presentation and loads of other commands have manuals, and this is called man. Manual pages help us find more information about what commands do when executed, the options that are associated with them, and other important notes. So I typed man ls, and this is what a man page looks like. It says the name, what it does, a more detailed description, some of the flags and options that are associated with it. And just like using less, you can use the arrow keys to go up and down the page, use page up, page down. You can press H for help and Q to quit. Another great built-in tool that can help you use the command line interface is the help command. It can be executed by itself to list all the commands available. The help command will also give you a short description and the options or flags that you can use with other commands. So if I want to see a short description about pwd and what I could use with it, I could say help pwd or help mkdir is another example. It's common convention for developers to also include a -- help option for Linux executables. And I'll show examples here. So I just typed help, and this is all the commands that are recognized, and there's lots of them. You can type help pwd to see information about pwd command. It says print the name of the current working directory and some options associated with it. And then for a Linux executable like Python, I can say Python -- help, and then we can see some usage options with Python and some other environmental variables and just other things that are associated with Python. Now we're going to talk about tab completion and other helpful time savers. So, as people who use the Linux command line, we rarely like to type out long things, and another way to get around that is using tab completion. Let's say that I wanted to use the cat command on hello world. So I could type cat hello world.txt. That would work, but to save ourselves some time, especially with long file names, what we can do is I can type out cat, and I'm in my home directory, and inside my home directory, you can see this, I can type maybe like a first character of hello world, H. Well, there's no other files in my home directory that start with an H besides hello world. So I can actually hit the tab button, and the computer knows that this is the only file that could start with H, so it automatically fills it in as hello world.txt. Hit enter, and I can see what's inside that file. And that's the basis of tab completion. I could also use the clear command. The clear command will actually clear my command line of previous things I've typed. So after you type in a lot of commands, the command line can kind of get stuffy or kind of get overflown. And so we can use the clear command, clear, just like that, hit enter, and then my command line is cleared and I can keep typing. And then the final thing I'd like to mention today is the up arrow. So if I type out some long command, what I can do is I can hit the up arrow and it'll bring up my most recent command, which in this case was clear. But if I typed in, let's see, cd home, my home directory, documents, and I cd there, I'm in documents. But let's say I go back to my home directory. Well, I can actually, instead of typing cd/home/cc Rollins/documents, I can actually hit up. That'll bring up my most recent, which was a change directory into my home directory. I can hit up again, and then it'll supply the previous command after, and you can see I can hit enter, and then it executes just like I did before, and I don't have to type out that long string again. Tab completion is what we looked at. We looked at the clear command, and then we also looked at the up arrow to recall previous commands. Thanks for watching.